Are you attached to the person or the future you imagined with them? Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're diving into a really difficult but incredibly common question. Sometimes you are not only losing a person, you are losing a future that already felt like a memory. I really want you to let that sink in for a second. It perfectly captures this jarring emotional contradiction. I mean, how can you grieve something that hasn't actually happened yet? It's a profound question, and figuring out the answer changes absolutely everything about how we process loss. So, to make sense of this contradiction, we're going to use a framework from the Levers Pattern Intelligence platform. Now, in this Pattern Loops explainer, we are definitely not here to label you or to diagnose anyone. Instead, we're going to map out the specific, recognizable psychological patterns that drive our emotional realities. We're looking at the underlying architecture of exactly why we hold on so tightly. To understand where this pain comes from, we first need to talk about self-expansion theory. The core idea here is the inclusion of the other in the self. And the research actually shows that normal romantic relationships literally expand a person's resources, their perspectives, and their daily activities. Over time, your partner actually becomes partially included in your very own self-concept. You know how it is. You develop shared routines, inside jokes, and deeply overlapping identities. And because of that deep overlap, think about what happens when the connection breaks. Research, like a fascinating 2010 study by Slaughter and colleagues, found that romantic breakups can literally reduce your self-concept clarity. So asking, "Who am I without you?" is not just you being dramatic or poetic. Separation creates a literal disruption of who you are and where you're going. You aren't just losing their texts, you're being forced to completely reconstruct your routines, your identity, and your entire map of tomorrow. The crucial point to get here is that attachment isn't just one single thread. We actually attach to 3 entirely different layers at the exact same time. Layer 1 is the real person, their actual repeated actions, their limitations, and their everyday choices. Layer 2 is what they represent to us, things like safety, belonging, status, or finally feeling understood. And layer 3 is the imagined future, the specific life or emotional state we expected to reach through them. And let me be really clear about something. This doesn't mean your original love was fake. Planning and hoping are completely normal parts of intimacy. But when a relationship ends, you can actually miss all 3 of these layers simultaneously. And this is exactly where the friction happens. We constantly weigh present evidence, what the person actually does right now, their availability, the cold, hard reality, against a future projection. And that projection is all the expectations, the idealization, and the amazing life you envision together. The real problem starts when that imagined potential starts carrying more weight than the person's actual repeated behavior. Because a future can feel incredibly emotionally real to you long before it becomes behaviorally probable. Okay, so let's see how this builds into an actual behavioral cycle by constructing the Lovers Pattern Map. We're going to chart the exact loop of this specific internal state. Think of it kind of like the blueprint of a habit. We'll use 4 systems: hearts, spades, diamonds, and clubs, to break down exactly what happens in your brain when your expected future suddenly collides with a disappointing present. Now, every loop starts with a trigger. In this case, the trigger is distance, a breakup, mixed signals, or just suddenly realizing that a future plan is now totally uncertain. This trigger completely disrupts that projected future we just talked about. Instantly, it brings on massive internal activation, a rush of disorientation, fear, longing, and a really profound sense of loss. Basically, your brain suddenly realizes the map it was relying on is entirely out of date. That activation immediately kicks off our first system, hearts. Hearts represent your core motivation. In this pattern, the motivation is simple, but incredibly powerful. I want the relationship, and I want the future I saw with them. That imagined future acts as a literal container for your hope. It's evidence to you that life will eventually make sense. So the desire to hold on to that, it is completely natural. Next up, the spades system activates. Spades represent protection. When your future is threatened, your mind desperately tries to protect you against grief and uncertainty. So the internal script becomes, without this future, I might lose my hope, my identity, my belonging, or my direction. Remember that self-concept disruption we mentioned earlier? Well, the spades system is absolutely terrified of that identity loss. It sees that imagined future as your only rescue from the uncertainty of right now. Which leads us right into diamonds, representing meaning and personal interpretation. This is a super critical juncture in the loop. The meaning you assign here is, this specific person was the exclusive path to the love, the stability, the success, or the desired self that I wanted. You totally merge the future you want with the person you were dating. They become the exclusive symbol of your possibility. So naturally, if they are gone, your brain concludes that the future is gone too. Finally, we reach clubs, and clubs dictate your behavior. Because you fully believe this person is the only route to your future, your behavior focuses entirely on keeping them psychologically alive. You might find yourself constantly replaying old plans, bargaining, endlessly waiting around, searching for signs, or preserving symbolic reminders. You're basically delaying new choices because you're trying so hard to keep the imagined future breathing by holding on to the person who symbolized it. So why do we stay stuck in this loop? Well, it all comes down to a stark contrast between immediate rewards and long-term consequences. The immediate reward is temporary access to hope and a feeling of continuity. When you replay those plans in your head, you get to feel that future for just a fleeting moment. But the long-term consequence? It's severe. By holding on to a projection, you're letting your own future be emotionally owned by one unavailable person. That imagined future is literally preventing you from evaluating the present reality of their incompatibility or their unavailability. So the big question is, how do we break out of this? We have to introduce the interruption. To change the pattern, you have to actively separate the qualities of the desired future from the individual who just happened to symbolize them. This is where factual information about the breakup actually helps, but only if you ask the right questions. You don't ask, was the future fake? Instead, you ask, which parts of that future belong to this person? And which parts reveal desires that actually still belong to me? And that brings us to a deeply, deeply empowering realization. The future may still be yours, even if the person is not. Think about it. If you imagined a future filled with travel, doing creative work, building a cozy home, or just being deeply understood, those are your ambitions. Those are your core values. The relationship merely provided a canvas for you to paint your own desires upon. It's time to reclaim ownership of your hope. I want to leave you with one profound reflection to carry into your real life right now. Can you preserve the future you wanted while releasing this person as its only route? Think about what you wanted to become. You can keep that destination, you just need to find a new path to get there. Thanks for joining me for this explainer, and remember to keep observing the patterns that shape your life.